Welcome, one and all, to the show. Wired up, fired up, and ready to go. Episode 41 of BlueTruth, New York Rangers Talk with Brian Attard, powered by the Sports Box Network. Like and follow on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, X, whatever they're calling Twitter these days. I'm going to call it Twitter. Thank you for those who are watching the live stream this evening. We appreciate that. If you are watching the replay on YouTube, that's great. Thank you for that as well. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button. You may be able to catch us live on one of these episodes. I am currently just finishing the customary shares of the show to all corners of the internet, since we love getting the word out of BlueTruth. Tonight is May 21st, and the New York Rangers are still playing hockey, and not because the season got delayed. Among other things, we'll take a look back at the second round series, the Rangers beating the Carolina Hurricanes, a series that I am very happy to have been wrong about. And we will look ahead to the matchup with the Florida Panthers in round 3. But breaking news: the New York Rangers have advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals by eliminating the Carolina Hurricanes in 6 games. The Carolina Hurricanes, you may recall, were the odds-on favorite to win the Stanley Cup at the beginning of the playoffs, and frankly, for most of the regular season. Many people, myself included, felt that Carolina would beat the Rangers in this series. The Hurricanes were the favorites to win the series, which makes sense since they were also the favorites to win the whole thing. I said on the last BlueTruth blast right before the series that I felt Carolina would win that series in 6, the same as I felt in 2022. And I hoped to be wrong the same way I was in 2022. And as I sit before you today, I am certainly thrilled to be wrong. I am over the moon to be wrong. It's great because from my vantage point, it was very complimentary of Carolina. The Rangers just beat the best team in the league. And that is great. Dimitri, brother, let's go Rangers. Matt Bordigan, let's go Rangers. Joe Malinowski, let's go Rangers. Justin Levine, let's go Rangers. Frankie, what's up, brother? Sav, one game at a time. Dean, let's go Underdogs. Touch on that in a second for sure. So the Rangers are back in the Eastern Conference Finals for the second time in 3 seasons. Let me just get this out of the way first. Is that in and of itself a success? No. I am of the belief that one team wins, and they haven't won anything yet. I would not go as far as saying that just getting to this point, no matter what happens in this series or hopefully the next one, that this year has been a success. I think that's defeatist attitude to say, well, it was a good year. I am not of that mindset at all. But what I will acknowledge is that for a team who told the world that they were selling off and going to rebuild the roster in February of 2018, to have positioned themselves the way they have, again, for the second time in 3 years, just 6 years from that letter, is certainly good. Ask the Toronto Maple Leafs if they'd swap lives with the Rangers, and the answer would be a resounding yes. It's absolutely true that you can't win round 4 if you don't win round 3. And you can't win round 3 if you don't get there. So, from that aspect, good on them. They have given themselves an opportunity. But that's all it is right now. I see some people saying, well, it's been a successful season no matter what. And I can't possibly disagree with that mindset more strongly. They've won nothing yet. And if you ask them, they would say the same thing. They still have a mission to accomplish, and they're only halfway there. They are one of 4 teams left that has a chance to win something, but so far, they have won nothing. The game is played for a big silver trophy at the end, and a parade, and a banner, and a bunch of diamond rings. It is not played to get close to those things and then be deemed a success just because you got close to those things. Success comes to one team every year. By the way, as is noted in the comments, there's Mark Siegel right there. Of the 4 teams remaining for those keeping score at home, the Rangers are the longest shot to win the cup. Keep that in your back pocket for later. When the Rangers were in that rebuilding process that the letters so eloquently put in motion in 2018, they netted themselves 2 top 2 picks thanks to some fortunate ping pong balls. Those seasons were certainly productive seasons. Not successful, but productive. Big difference. For me, San Jose had a hugely productive year this year. They had the first pick. Not successful, but productive. The Rangers absolutely have a very good chance to have a successful season, to win the Stanley Cup. They do. Are they perfect? No. No team's perfect. Despite what lore will tell you, the 94 team wasn't perfect either, as those memories start to fade over 30 years. I was 10. I say all of that to say this. Fans go to extremes in both directions. For all the times this season where I saw people say they had to go into another rebuild, that they just don't have the roster, this guy sucks, that guy sucks, it's all just emotional reaction. I went to game 5 against Carolina, and they were 20 minutes away from advancing then, and then they played this horrific third period, and they lost. And that was really the first truly negative evening of the playoffs. I was also in the city for game 4 with friends from Blue Shirt Underground at McHale's in Times Square, 53rd Street, something like that, which, despite the result, was a lot of fun. By the way, while I'm on the topic, make sure that you are following Jim and Eddie with Blue Shirt Underground. 2 guys, 1 cup. Sean and Rock do a great job too. Wonderful, wonderful Rangers coverage from the fan, which I think is a different perspective than you normally get. But anyway, so game 4 was a loss, but they played generally well, right? People didn't think they were going to go 16-0. They lost game 4. Okay, they lost it at the end of the finally they scored a power play goal. But it was after game 5 that the PTSD started to show itself in this base. All it took was one true stinker of a game, and it surfaced right back up, bubbled right back to the top. The franchise record, 55 wins, and the President's Trophy, and the great seasons from so many players, and the 7-1 start to the playoffs, it all just disappeared from people's minds. And the Hurricanes were going to win 4 straight. It was all going to fall apart because of how they looked in game 5. I don't recall any of that in 2022. So I have to attribute this to 2023. The Rangers played a bunch of stinkers in the playoffs in 2022. After all, it took them a couple miracles, 14 games to get out of the first 2 rounds. There's like this feeling in the back of fans' minds that they're just waiting for the other shoe to drop with this team. They wanted to be like, oh, I knew they were going to lose. I knew they weren't good. I knew it was smoke and mirrors all year. Like, it's almost like people want to see things crash and burn and be a train wreck to validate their preseason expectations of this whole thing being a disaster this year, because the Devils series was a disaster last year. There's like this hesitance to really believe, because you did that last year, especially after the first 2 games against New Jersey, and then they broke your belief. It's almost like people don't want to get hurt again, so they don't fully put themselves into it. Well, let me try to be the voice of reason that I think I am. Amateur sports fan psychologist that I am. If nothing else, I do know our fan base. I know what makes us tick. I know how we are wired. You should believe in this team. And I think if you're not fully believing in them, if you think that that's going to somehow save you some heartache if they do lose, whether it's this round or the finals, I think that you're wrong. Anything short of a Stanley Cup is going to break your heart, whether you fully have it in your heart or not. It's not going to hurt any less by trying to shield yourself from fully believing that this really could happen. Just because you have this thought in the back of your mind that maybe they won't win it all, maybe because you got ahead of yourself last year and you let yourself see these visions of grandeur up 2-0 on New Jersey, and then you took it on the chin, that doesn't mean that you're somehow going to feel it less now if they lose. If anything, your inability to believe, your fear of having your heart broken again is doing nothing other than restraining yourself from enjoying the moments which make up the potential path to the cup. And one of those moments was the third period of game 6 against Carolina. We'll talk about that in a bit. But let me be crystal clear on this. If the team doesn't win, then this road meant absolutely nothing. We celebrate playoff series wins because the road continues. It means that the chance to win it all is still alive. If the road ends, then the journey to that point is all for naught anyway. I am not sitting here and telling you that you should blindly be loving this road, and if they don't win, well, at least you had fun. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that if you think you'll avoid pain by restricting yourself from enjoying pleasure, the only person you are hurting is you. If your first inclination after game 5 was to say, oh, got to sit Igor, play Jonathan Quick, which I saw a lot of, by the way, that's just the manifestation of your lack of belief in the team, and it stems from last year, and I think it's irrational. Dave Fibo, I know you're watching. I had people, Dave specifically, I might add, who's a good guy. We have fun. But he argued with me over my position that I wanted the Islanders, I wanted the Islanders to beat and take out Carolina in round 1 so that the Rangers would avoid having to see Carolina in round 2. I was told that you can't ever root for the rival, maybe especially not that team, which I get. I get where that comes from. But at the end of the day, my team winning is far more important to me than my rival losing. Kind of the same premise I was just talking about, right? People wanted to avoid the pain of the small possibility that the Rangers could lose to the Islanders in the playoffs, and they let that overtake the precedence of making the road for the Rangers to win easier. And it is all in your head. At least some of you were consistent in that regard. So, as a Disney World annual pass holder, here's my advice to you. Let it go. Let it go. I'm not going to sing the song. I am not going to do that. But still, let yourself fully immerse in this. Because if it doesn't work out, it's going to hurt just the same. You accomplish nothing by waiting for something to go wrong to validate your predisposed negativity. It is a nonsensical way of looking at things. And if this team means something to you, and I know that it does, it means a lot to me. If it doesn't end with the big trophy at the end, it's going to hurt whether you're consciously muting your belief or not. And that's another thing. I really think most of these people that are giving off this external face of they're not that good, because at some point they want to point to it, be like, I was right, like that matters. They'll be the first ones to just lose their mind in elation if they win it all. You can't just pretend that you're not on board on the journey and then lead the train when they win. Doesn't work like that. Don't even know why you'd want to be that way. It makes no sense. I'm not, look, if you follow the shows, most of the time I think you know what my take is before I give it to you. I'm not saying that you should be a blind cheerleader. It's not at all what I'm saying. So please don't take it that way. But at this point, with this team, I don't know what more you need to see to know, win or lose at this point, they do have a legitimate opportunity. We nitpick sometimes. when there's nothing to worry about, we worry about why there's nothing to worry about type thing. And I'm not saying there's nothing to worry about. Team isn't perfect. Team has some issues. All teams do. What I'm saying is that they've shown you that they have the ability to get this done. So believe in them. Don't just go to that negative place in your mind the split second that something isn't picture perfect. They were never going 16-0. So it's okay. Matt, guilty. Larry Wilcox, Rangers needed some adversity. You got the wake-up call. We'll talk about that. Anthony Marzari, again, I love seeing these new names, guys. I was extremely happy that comeback in Game 6 against the Hurricanes. Absolutely. Mike Froman, let's go Rangers. Dean, I feel like I'm at an AA meeting for Ranger fans. Dean, I don't know if you watched the show before. We like to delve into the mind of the Ranger fans sometimes, because I think that, your experience colors your view a lot. And I think the people that really got their hearts broken last year because they got kind of ahead of themselves, they're trying to stay so far away from that fire just to avoid the remote shot of getting burned. And I just think it's at their own detriment. Megan Hoffman, completely agree. Thank you, Megan. John, your explanation of our fan base and most of the fan pages is spot on. I've been trying to make sense of the actions of the fans, and you just solved it. Again, I'm very introspective about the way we all love this team, root for this team. I think we're a very unique fan base in that way. But I do like to think I know how we tick. We're not that dissimilar as a group. Daryl, you're supposed to support your team no matter what, so get in the boat and row. Sean, same 40th season. I'm 40 years old, so it's kind of my 40th year. I think I remember 35 of them. Sav, we have a 24% chance of winning it all, at least. Yes, we do. Roberts, continue. All I know is if I hear any more boos during this MSG run, I'm going to lose it. Well, to be fair, they earned those boos in Game 5. Let's call it what it is, okay? That's, again, you don't have to. Got two of these. You can respond to what they are doing in front of you. Doesn't mean you lose faith. It doesn't mean that you protect. You put your shields up, I guess. So this is the Star Wars analogy, right? I knew Dave would chime in. I couldn't root for the Islanders anymore if they were playing for the Taliban. I'd root for death too. The Taliban injuries to the Islanders. Don't read into anymore. It's that simple. And Dave, listen, I understand your viewpoint, but I think you also understand mine. We would agree. Again, we're past it now, right? We would agree the Islanders would have been an easier team to beat for the Rangers. Therefore, that's the team I want to play. I want to make my road as easy as possible. Keep my nausea and stress as minimal as it possibly can be, which this time of year is not good. It's not good at all. I think we know where each other is. We might not agree on it, but I think we know each other's viewpoint. There's my buddy Tom. Let's go Rangers. Tom happened to join us along with a couple of people. Sav, you were there at McHale's. That was a lot of fun on Game 4. Even though they lost, it was still a lot of fun. Chris Munch, it will come down to our special teams and goaltending. We've proven to be good on both the regular season and playoffs thus far. Let's go Rangers. Ken, one cup is World War II. Make him. Hey, listen, that cup was great, though. How great was that cup? Maybe we'll get it again. So you're saying there's a chance. Well, there's always a chance. Mike, most diehard sports fans are... Yes, they are. But to that point, Mike, and this is the argument I have with people, you don't celebrate losing later. It's still losing. One team wins. The people that are like, oh, my team got so far. Nobody cares. Do you got the big trophy at the end? No? Cool. Nobody cares. Like, people they want something to be happy about, and they convince themselves that, like, just getting far is somehow good enough. And it's not. We play to win. We play to win. Megan Hoffman, this team finds a way. They work together. Very different. I attribute that, of course, to coaching. Coaching's, this year, huge difference in our play, and we mesh. Love the sick passing. Mike Epstein, so true. Tom, this is what Vegas does. They want to scare people away from betting on the Rangers. So, what did we learn from the Hurricane series? So let's take a look back and see what we learned over the Rangers 6-game series triumph over the Hurricanes. Well, first and foremost, if you didn't know, now you know, Igor Shesterkin's the best goalie in the world. Full stop. We'll get to other guys who played big roles in the series, but Shesterkin, one on the top of his game, is just unreal. We have been so spoiled by goaltending with this team. And this is just again, I'm 40, right? So I kind of was aware of things right kind of towards the end of Van Bee's work, right? So from Mike Richter to Henrik Lundqvist, I know there was like a gap, whatever, to Igor Shesterkin. We always seem to have this elite level of play in net that mops up the mistakes, allows the team to take more liberties and being aggressive on the other end. Igor was dominant in the series, even though he let in like 3 or 4. It's fine. The point is, he made the saves when he needed to get them over the hump. I thought that Vinny Trocheck was a monster in the series. I think he still holds some resentment from how things ended in Carolina for him. Carolina got into this pissing match with Montreal over RFAs because Montreal made an offer to Aho. So then they offered one to Jesper Kotkaniemi, and the money they should have given him went to him. So, he rightfully wanted to go down there and shove it in their ass, and I think, frankly, that he did. 3 goals, 5 assists in the 6 games, including the double OT winner in game 2. It's a monster year for him. We talk about players and their importance to the team, what they've done. But as much as we talk about Trocheck, we really don't talk about him enough. Like, he's that good this year, and he had to be in the role that he played. You said on the last BlueTruth blast right before the Carolina series that I felt the Hurricanes were the best team in the league. They have an elite ability to shot suppress, keep their shots against them low, while simultaneously getting the most shots for. And I felt that that was something that was not generally a recipe for success for the Rangers. And to that end, the Hurricanes did win the battle at 5-on-5. So, it played out that way. That didn't really surprise anybody. That's what Carolina does. We said coming into the series that the power play had to be the difference. And in a bit of irony, it was the power play that was the difference. It was Carolina's power play that was the difference. And to me, that's really the primary reason they lost the series. In the 6 games, the Hurricanes went 2 for 21 on the man advantage. They were 0 for 15 through the first 3 games, all Rangers wins. A team that connected at close to a 27% clip in the regular season was only able to muster a 9.5% success rate in the 6 games. The Rangers scored as many goals on Carolina's power play as Carolina did. That was the difference. And honestly, like I think it's that simple. The Rangers jumped out to this 3-0 series lead, and everybody just assumes at that point, oh, you're up 3-0, series is over because it's next to impossible for a team to down 3-0 to win 4 straight. I was not of that mindset if anybody was talking to me. The thing about usually a team that is up 3-0 is just that much better than their opponent. Think of, the Rangers in Washington. Like, it's night and day. They're up 3-0 because they're just dominating their opponent. And that's why teams don't come back from 3-0. But that's not always the case. The Rangers won 3 one-goal games in the first 3 games of this series, 2 of which went to overtime. So the same way that we were up 3-0 in the series, it could easily have been 3-0 or 2-1 the other way. So I didn't feel that up 3-0 was a fait accompli that the Rangers were going to just win the series because they got up 3-0. There were coin flip games that worked out for the Rangers, but this wasn't the 94 Rangers against the Islanders where it was 6-0, 6-0, 5-1, 5-2. It wasn't that kind of domination. Carolina's very good. The Rangers did not dominate them. So the possibility was always there of Carolina coming back into the series because Carolina is an excellent hockey team. People sometimes, they let their emotions get dictated by the sequence of events in a series, a sequence of games. If you were told going into the series that the Rangers would have been up 3-2 going into game 6, great, right? That's great. Let's take that. You would have absolutely taken that. If the Rangers had lost game 3 and won game 4 instead of the opposite, you feel very differently going into and out of game 5. You were more down about it because they had lost 2 games in a row. And I think that we focus so much on that sequence of events too often in the playoffs because, as we talked about, plenty of people were waiting for them to lose so they could be right about their preseason negativity. It is what it is. But the way the series flowed changes the way you react to what's in front of you. PJ, I learned that the breaks fell our way. Well, we did. They did. Trouba wears a C for a reason. Kreider had the A for a reason. A lot of people have A's. It's like my report card. Without the C. Just all A's. Chris, we learned Freddie Anderson is not Igor. No, he is not. No, he is not. Justin, don't forget Mike Dunham. Mike Dunham wasn't that great. Mike Dunham was not. I'm purposely skipping the gap because it takes away from my story. But it's just, again, like there's been elite guys. There's been elite guys. Nick Yoffler, shorthanded goals they let up. Sav, our third and fourth lines were effective as well. Reminds me of the loss in the Cup final against LA. They had that last series. So Peter Laviolette was asked about the team's desperation level coming out of that Game 5 debacle. And he said, quote, "Desperation's a funny thing. You can't give it to somebody. You actually have to feel it and you have to be in it. Then you can rise to that level." And so we move into the next game and realize now that the window is a little bit smaller and that desperation level rises. So when you hear that, you think about it. Didn't he essentially voice the story of Game 6? Because that's what happened. You didn't see the absolute best of the Rangers until they were down 2 goals in Game 6 with half a period left, separating them from a flight back home to play a Game 7 in the Garden after being up 3-0, trying desperately to avoid being up, blowing a 3-0 lead, and risking having everything they worked for go poof before their very eyes. My dad and I talk Rangers all the time, and every so often, he makes some ridiculously good point that blows my mind. So credit where credit's due. He said something to me after Game 5 as I was coming home because I went to the game and that was not fun. But he said to me, actually he said this to me a couple times this year, to be fair, that you just never know what Rangers team is going to show up that night. Sometimes they come out guns blazing and overwhelm a team and they make the game just go their way with force, basically. Other times they're as flat as a sheet of paper and the game just gets away from them. And maybe that's something to do with the year that they've had kind of being on the easy side for them. So the series with Washington, right, that was over before it started. They were never in any sort of actual trouble against Washington. They mostly had their way in a mostly non-competitive 4 games. What is sometimes simultaneously glorious and infuriating is that the Rangers seem to have this gear that they don't always get to. But when they get to it, they are really, really good. And for some reason, they don't seem to ever get to that gear until their backs are up against the wall and they have no choice but to get to that gear to survive. Like Laviolette said, you can't give desperation to someone. We know this all too well as Rangers fans. Going back to the run that they had in the early to mid 2010s, the Lundqvist years, the 2012 to 2015, like when they had the consistently good runs that they had, they always seemed to get them. They had to get themselves into a situation where their backs were against the wall. And it wasn't until then that it brought out the best in them. As my dad also likes to say, they can't stand prosperity. So, and someone alluded to this earlier in the comments. I apologize for the name, but I want to give you credit because you did mention this, and I agree with you. In a way, I think that going through some adversity in the series and having to overcome it is a really good thing moving forward. Do I think that they got complacent? I wouldn't say they got complacent, but I do think that they weren't overly sharp in Game 5. Game 4 was whatever. Like, I don't think they played poorly in game 4. You're not going to win all 16. Whatever. Game 5 was the one that brought out the same old Rangers mindset from the fan base. Oh, it's happening again. It's the Devil Series again, because people are not over that. But I think that having to get to that gear and realizing that gear is there will pay dividends for them moving forward. And if you zoom that out, 30,000-foot view, I think that having the experiences they had in 2022 and 2023 is going to help them as well. On May the 8th, the day after Trocheck's Game 2 winner against Carolina, noted Devils fan and Rangers hater, Greg Wyshynski from ESPN. He was on the Jeff Marek show, which is really good. If you like hockey podcasts, I recommend that one. Really good, national, international type feel to it. He said that the Rangers were the latest example of a team that had to get kicked in the face when they were down to really reach their potential. The correlation that he drew was to the Lightning being swept by Columbus after that great year they had, and then using that as fuel to go win a Stanley Cup. And they did win 2 in a row. In Aerosmith's Dream On, I know all the words. Love that song. One part that always stuck out to me is you got to lose to know how to win. And maybe the pain we all went through, that they went through, is what brings that higher gear that they don't always get to. I do think there's something to that. I think the experience that they went through and losing the way they did last year and who they lost to, I keep drawing back to that because I feel it was the launching pad for them this year, and really for the fan base too. Like, some people, again, like a divergence, people kind of took it different ways. We talk about how when teams lose, it's the fans who hurt. The players are, millionaire mercenaries. It's just business for them. I don't know that these Rangers fall under that idea. Is that me romanticizing it? I mean, I can't rule that out, right? So maybe, I'm not saying that that's not the case. But I think back to breakup day last year and how it just looked like they were in shock that they lost that series, and how they all said and they felt it was an opportunity they let slip away. And while some fans will not just let themselves believe because they don't want to get hurt again, the players don't have that option. So for them, the way they avoid the pain is by not letting it happen to them again. Game 5 against Carolina was a fresh reminder that it's no nights off. The 2023 team felt a lot like if one guy didn't get it done, that there was so much talent and the big names and the cup experience that someone else would. And I think with, the lack of coaching, frankly, I think too often in that series, everybody thought somebody else would get it done and nobody did. And that's Gerard Gallant, okay? I will always lay that at his feet. This team, somebody else said it too. The comments come in. I apologize. I don't get them at the time. I try to, go through my content, but the team is not perfect, but they find ways to rise to the occasion. And you have to give them credit for that. They've never, ever done it easy. No, Sean, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. PJ, no easy victories. We'll get to that. Dean, absolutely. Mike Epstein, all come from behind losses, confirms that. Billy Sapp, I disagree. It was great adjustments by the Canes. You could see adjustments against the Rangers power play in the forechecking and playing the boards against the Rangers. Yeah, Billy, but still, game 5 was like they didn't generate anything. And that can't entirely be just some changes Carolina made. I think that it was just that was the night. But I think they needed it. I think they needed that experience to remind them, maybe humble them a little bit. It's not always going to be this easy. So it's good experience, I think, to draw from moving forward. Joan, I think that constantly being the underdog, quote unquote, game to game is beneficial in the same way. I don't disagree at all. I mean, if I'm Lafayette and I want to I post that on the board. They'll think you can win, go prove them wrong. Stick it up their ass, basically. So I don't think that you're wrong at all, to make that assessment. Chris Kreider. There is no better example of someone rising to the occasion, of someone not waiting for anybody else to do the job and just taking it on his back than Chris Kreider in game 6. If there is one player on the Rangers who gets, I feel, the brunt of fan criticism, and maybe it's just accumulated over the years he's been here, it's Chris Kreider. I said on episode 40 that everybody always wants to get rid of Chris Kreider because he just doesn't play the way people think he should be playing. That third period, if this team pulls this off this year and wins it all, that third period will get its own chapter in the story. The very easy comparison to Mark Messier in 94 against the Devils, it's not a perfect linear comparison given the circumstances. Again, the Rangers were down 3-2 against New Jersey. Messier guaranteed the win. They went out and made it happen. So it's not exactly the same. But man, I mean, this is as close as we're likely ever going to get to something like that. Excuse me. The Rangers didn't look bad in game 6, not early. I felt that they were carrying play, but Carolina did an exceptional job of blocking shots. The shots on goal at the end of the first, like if you had just turned it on and looked at the stats, it would have made it seem like the Rangers were getting dominated, and they really weren't. But fast forward to the end of the second, and they're down 3-1. And I know I felt it, so I know you felt it. It felt like there was going to be a game 7. And that's not a same old Rangers thing. That's hey, most teams going down 2 goals into the third don't win that game thing. So I don't think anybody was like overly positive about the prospects of them coming back in that game. They pretty much looked dead until they didn't. Mika throws a puck on net. Anderson thinks he has it against the post with his foot. Kreider goes in, pokes at it, puck goes in, and then all of a sudden, they have life. The game is 3-2. Whole different vibe after that. I had a conversation with Ray Ferrara, who I know is not everybody's favorite, but he's a guest on the show. We talk every little bit. And I asked him what he thought about the Canes changing goalies going into game 3. And he said, I'm going to quote this. I'm reading it from my phone. I'm actually not surprised. They needed to change something, and Anderson gave up a bad goal in game 1, and the last 2 goals in game 2 become an issue for him because they're tight into his feet, and he struggles with that. So pretty prescient call by Ray there. That's exactly what happened on that goal. But the game changed. A couple minutes later, Carolina takes a penalty. Jordan Staal with this hit from behind that I guess maybe looked worse than it was, but penalty on Zibanejad. Rangers go to the power play. Kreider takes a spot in his office right in front of the net. Scores so many goals right there in the paint. Panarin shoots one from near the blue line, looking like he wants Kreider to tip it. Perfect redirection. Kreider ties the game. And now the momentum has just swung completely the entire way. Now it's Carolina that's got to dig deep and stem the tide. And they're unable to do it. A couple minutes later, Jack Roslovic cycles around the net to Ryan Lindgren, who comes around like he's Adam Fox. Makes this just perfect pass to Chris Kreider, who just isn't going to miss from there. Rangers lead 4-3, and they don't look back. Kreider became the first player in Stanley Cup playoffs history to have a third period natural hat trick to turn a 2-goal deficit into a 1-goal lead single-handedly. Legendary stuff. And I don't even think we fully appreciate what we saw. That's going to be like a fine wine. It will get better and better with time. You will never forget where you were when Chris Kreider scored a natural hat trick in the third period of Game 6 to send the Rangers to the conference finals, when it surely seemed like they were headed to a Game 7 with everything on the line. Only Ryan Strome could have missed from there. +1, Matt. I like it. Given Chris Kreider's statistics in franchise history, the way he's at or near the top of so many lists and metrics, it was a strong possibility that we were going to see number 20 retire to the Garden Raptors in the future anyway. But after that performance, that all-time performance in that spot, go get the number banner printed now. Nobody is wearing number 20 again for this team. And we talk about pulling from this past experience to help in the future. We talked about how the Rangers lost in 22 and 23 and how it would be a source of fuel for them moving forward. That sort of performance by Kreider could absolutely be a launching pad sort of thing for them. They know they're never out of a game. If they can come back under those circumstances in that spot against that team, what can't they do? The confidence they can build off of that is massive. And like I said, this moment could eventually be seen as the Messier moment for this team if they win it all. Its own chapter in the story. And if you're not believing in them, if you're holding it back because you just think it's going to save you heartache later, man, you just missed out on really enjoying a historic moment for the franchise because you prefer to be grouchy about it. Chris Kreider is going to finish his career as a New York Ranger, and his number will be retired to the rafters of Madison Square Garden. I don't know how anyone can make a logical case against that now. And the crazy part, I looked into this, how he's evolved his game to become a better player as he's gotten older. He has been in New York, I'm going to age everybody, 12 years. 12 years. 815 games in Ranger Blue, regular season. 48% of his goals have come in the last 4 years. If you throw out the pandemic year, he's got 127 goals in his last 242 games. He is 7th in the entire NHL in goals scored in the last 3 seasons. That is just remarkable. It was Chris Kreider, the modern day Mr. Ranger. No disrespect whatsoever to Roger Gilbert. None at all. It was Kreider who put the team on his back and willed them to win Game 6 and advance to round 3. And it is just amazing stuff that we will look back on years from now. And we'll all remember where we were when he did it. I was in my living room, sulking for the most part, going into that third period. And then belief. You can ask my dad. I was running around. I was pacing. It's me. I don't. Playoff hockey is stress and nausea to me. Like, I don't enjoy any of it until it's over. So that's just my natural reaction. I can't help myself. It's how I'm wired, right? Torts almost ruined him. Maybe now Kreider gets more recognition for being a great player. Needs a cup so badly. Don't we all? Robert, I was talking with Richter about Game 6 when I met him on Saturday. It was a magic moment for him, too. Said he knew it wasn't over once Kreider scored the first one. Didn't expect that. Kreider is a legend. Billy Sapp. Anderson helped us out last series. Different story with the Panthers go. How do you feel? We'll talk about the Panthers in just a minute. I have some thoughts on that as to the formula, I guess. One last thought on Game 6 before we move on. Unbelievable play by Jordan Martinook of Carolina to save that goal from Ryan Lindgren. Unreal. But I was just very surprised that it didn't get a review. Now, you know as well as I do that if the tables were turned and it was Lindgren who made that crazy defensive play, they would have probably spent 7 minutes trying on an iPad to zoom in and freeze frame and this and that, dissecting it to see if they could find a single millisecond where the puck maybe possibly kind of just went over the line by a millimeter and count it as a goal. You know this. I don't think the puck went in, to be fair. I'm not saying they should have overturned it. What I'm saying is, great play. Kudos to Martinook. He can talk about it while he's golfing this summer. But how do they not even take a second to look at it? I don't want to hear, oh, they review everything, Brian. Okay. But how often do you see the range on the short end of the stick after a reviewer saying, like, there's no way this is going to count? And then it does. That's all. Short rant on that. Okay. We are now in round 3. The Eastern Conference Finals. The Rangers' opponents will be the defending Eastern Conference champion Florida Panthers. You're in the Final Four now. This is best on best. Nothing about this is going to be easy. Florida is a minus 150 favorite in the series. The Rangers a plus 130 underdog. That means if you want to win $100 on Florida to win the series, you got to lay out 150. If you lay 100 on the Rangers, you win 130. Those numbers are very similar to what the numbers were going into the Carolina series, so don't get too upset about that. Florida shocked the world last year, took down the 65-win Boston Bruins, and really haven't looked back at all. Last year, they lost in the Cup Finals to the Vegas Golden Knights. They won a brutal Atlantic this year. They dispatched of the Lightning in 5, and the Lightning are always a tough out, as we know. They again came up against Boston in round 2, and despite losing game 1, they were able to get through the Bruins in 6 to end up in this matchup with our New York Rangers. 110 points in a regular season, 52 wins. This is a very good team, as you have to be at this point in the season. They're also a very physical team. Florida was just one minor penalty away from leading the league in penalty minutes this year. Only the Panthers and the Ducks had over 1,000 penalty minutes this season. Both actually had over 1,100. The Panthers had 5 players that scored 20 goals or more. The leader was Sam Reinhart, had 57. In comparison, the Rangers also had 5 players score over 20 goals. Actually, they had 5 players over 25. You know who they are. Panthers are not short on star power. In addition to Reinhart, the team boasts Selke winner Alex Barkov, Matt Tkachuk, Carter Verhaeghe. That's just the forwards. Defensively, they're stout as well. Aaron Ekblad was the top pick in the 2014 draft. The draft Shesterkin was taken. It was in Philly. I was there for that. Gustav Forsling has blossomed from a journeyman into an excellent defenseman. Brandon Montour as well. This is a really good team. They were aggressive again at the deadline. They have a couple of faces whom we remember from last year. They added Vladimir Tarasenko from Ottawa in a deadline deal, and they also signed Nico Mikkola this past offseason. Starting goalie is Sergei Bobrovsky, 36-17-4, 2.37 goals against, 915 save percentage. Florida allowed the fewest goals per game this year in the NHL, 2.37. Had the second best save percentage of .918, 8 shutouts, tied for the league best. Their power play was ranked 8th in the league. The Rangers were 3rd. Their PK was ranked 6th. Rangers were 3rd. Contrary to the Carolina series, the Rangers actually do have the special teams edge here, at least from a regular season ranking standpoint. In the games that Florida played against the Rangers, they were 2-0-1. Rangers lost 4-3 in Florida December 29th, which is kind of where that rough patch was for the Rangers this year, that late December to January. They lost to Florida in Florida 4-2 on March the 4th. And then the Rangers did win in a shootout against Florida at the Garden March 23rd. Florida's a heavy team. They really try to bully their opponent. They got a lot of skill, but they also wear you down. Florida led the league in hits this year with 2,348. We talked about how good Carolina was at driving play and getting shot attempts. Well, Carolina led the league. Florida was second. We talked about how good Carolina was at suppressing shot attempts. Carolina led the league. Florida was second. The Rangers, all the time, are talked about how they struggle at 5-on-5, relatively speaking, and that their wheelhouse is their power play. That's not inaccurate, but the Rangers did outscore the Panthers at 5-on-5 this year in regular season, 167-156, to be fair. I was asked, where was it? Billy Sapp asked about, what the Rangers need to do. What's the formula for success here? What's the recipe? It's really not that dissimilar to what they used to beat Carolina. They are very similar teams in how they attack and how they play. They can be beaten kind of the same way. The Rangers did a really nice job for the most part against Carolina of allowing Carolina to get their volume of shots, but they weren't really high danger shots. So Carolina got the volume they're used to, but it wasn't the volume that you fear. Plus, it's Igor Shesterkin. So if Florida is going to get their shots to the net, what the Rangers need to make sure of is that they're forcing the Panthers into creating that volume at low danger. Igor can see it. Igor can stop it, keep it to the outside, keep him out of the slot. Kind of what they did largely to Carolina. The Rangers need to stay close to them at 5-on-5, make good on their power play opportunities, and then let Igor do his thing. That's the formula. Bobrovsky is good. He's not Igor good. Florida is Carolina with better goaltending, if you really want to break it down, right? So Bobrovsky and Shesterkin both won 36 games. They lost 17. The advantage is in goal for the Rangers. It's not as wide a disparity as it was against Carolina, but it is still an advantage for the Rangers. I mentioned how critical, and this, again, this is how we win, right? I mentioned how critical the Rangers power play would be because it will be. We know Florida will take penalties. The Rangers have to capitalize on their power plays, and they need to not let the Matthew Tkachuks, the Sam Bennetts, get under their skin and create retaliation calls. Keep your composure. Don't beat yourself. Let Florida do that. Let Florida take the penalties and then make them pay for it. I can't imagine that the Rangers are going to see a team blow as many power plays as Carolina did, and you can't count on that. The Rangers do appear very likely to have the services of Filipino in this series. He's been skating at practice on the third line left wing. He essentially confirmed he'll be back in some of the quotes he said earlier today about how we can't wait to play at the Garden again this week. So assume he's in. I don't see why he wouldn't be, which helps depth a lot. Should they choose to, it sounds as if Blake Wheeler will be available too. Listen, this is a great problem to have. They have solid depth at this point. We're not going to see too much, Johnny Brodzinski and everything else. The third line of Cooley, Wenberg, and Kakko has been excellent defensively, but they have not provided much offensively. Hedl would raise the line's chance to get on the score sheet. And secondary scoring might be a storyline here because both teams are so good and so talented in the top six. Igor. No problem. Next topic. A lot was made over how Matt Rempe was used in the Carolina series. Many people, I'm sure Igor's one of them, thinks he should be used more in a series against a more physical team like Florida. Rempe wasn't used as much and really only used at home because Laviolette did not want to risk having the opposition with the last line change be able to use a top scoring line against Rempe and get themselves some chances. We can have a discussion on if that's the right move or not at a different time. Okay. All right. As you were. I read the room wrong. But that's the why, right? At least at home, Laviolette can control who Rempe is matched up against. And another thing, if Laviolette's only going to play Rempe 5 minutes in a game, there's really not this big point of having him play, right? If you see Rempe in this series, I think you are far more likely to see him in the games at the Garden, in the games at home and not on the road, because Laviolette can shelter him, get him out there in the matchups that he wants, and not leave him out to dry defensively against some of their big guns in their top six. He really can't do that in the games in Florida. In game 6 against Carolina, Brodzinski, VC, and Goodrow, that line had the least amount of ice time. It was 8:45, 9:53, and 10:46, respectively. Rempe, in game 1, played less than that, 7:06. In game 5, less than that, 6:01. So I'm fine with Rempe out. I think the only way to get Wheeler in, which it doesn't seem PJ's a fan of, I think the only way that happens would be to get Wheeler onto line 3 and drop Kakko to line 4. I'm not entirely against it. If you're essentially going to make a fourth line out of your old third line, because the depth you have, but Goodrow and VC play roles. So I mean, I just feel like you have to have those guys there. Goodrow was an underrated player this time of the year. 1 to 82, couldn't care less. Now I think he has some value. We'll see what they do there. The good news is they've gotten to this point getting very little from Adam Fox. Just 4 assists so far in the playoffs. So, he's closer to a point per game player. That's what they need from him. I think he's nursing something with the knee. I think the rest in between the series should help him. Now, in video today, in the interview, he said he's good to go, but he was sitting next to Jacob Trouba, who was kind of laughing about it, and as if he knew something was up, which I'm sure it is. Yeah, I don't think it doesn't feel like he's going to be 100% in the series. It is what it is. 80% of Adam Fox is better than the vast majority of defensemen in this league. Take what you can get. The rest should also help the Rangers generally. They've played really well coming off of rest. They're 8-2 this year, following a 6-day break, which is what they're going to have going into tomorrow's game 1 against the Panthers. Look, this series is not going to be easy, and you don't need me to tell you that. I think that we were a little spoiled last round in that they jumped out to this 3-0 lead, and it really wasn't that kind of series. I mean, they won, right? But don't get me wrong, but it wasn't this dominant show from the Rangers. I think that home ice will be a factor in this one, but I expect to see a lot of blue in the games in Florida. Curious how that plays out. I think it is paramount that the Rangers stay ahead of them in this series. I think the Rangers need game 1. I think they need to be no worse than 2-2 going into game 5. I don't know if the Rangers can come back from a 3-1 against this team. I don't want to find out. Again, we go back to 2 years ago. It was 3-1 against Pittsburgh, 3-2 against Carolina. Like the Rangers need to not let themselves get their backs to the wall to play like their backs are against the wall. The same things that we say about how the experience of losing might drive the Rangers is something that might drive Florida as well. They scratched and clawed, pardon the Panther puns. They got to the finals last year and they lost to Vegas. So they've got their own demons to exercise. They've got their own bag of bad losing experiences to pull out of to get angry about. I think it goes 7. And I think home ice tilted in our favor. It's not going to be fun. It's going to be stressful. It's going to make you nauseous. You're going to have to gut through a 7th game. But I think if we get there, the Garden and Shesterkin to make the difference. So I guess my official prediction is Rangers in 7. And call your cardiologist. Make sure you're on the right medication. This is gonna drain you. Florida's real good. Again, from my vantage point, Carolina was the best team in the league, right? So if you can beat them, you can beat anybody. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. But Florida's real good. Florida's like right behind them in a lot of metrics, but their goaltending's better. It's a really even series. Give me the Rangers at home. Give me the 7th game. And we'll see if I'm right. Speaking of Rangers in 7, ESPN is going to be debuting No Easy Victories, a documentary about the 1994 Stanley Cup champion New York Rangers. I've got some mixed feelings on this. I think that we've all heard the story from every possible angle 100 times by now. But at the moment, it's the only thing we have to cling to. I don't know that we're going to learn anything new that we don't already know about the 94 Rangers, but of course we're going to watch it. It seems like from the trailer that they're taking the angle of the Stephen McDonald story, and that's certainly a different angle than we've seen on things like Road to Victory. I have no doubt it'll be well done. ESPN's very good at it. Their coverage of hockey sometimes can leave you wanting more, but they're good at the production of sports documentaries. So, of course, we'll watch it. I did not watch Saving Sakic because it wasn't complimentary to my team, but based on your recommendation, Dimitri, I will save the time. I think this is going to come okay. Maybe because I'm a Rangers fan and I view things that way. But while we're talking about things you need to watch on streaming, if you haven't yet, you really need to watch Open Heart on Netflix. That's the story of Henrik Lundqvist and how his career ended. Strongly, strongly encourage you to do so if you have not. I'm not going to give anything away because I want you to really enjoy it. But I think you'll get a new appreciation for who Hank was and how he's wired and what being a Ranger the whole way meant to him. You see a lot of the behind the scenes about his experience in New York, how close they got to winning in that run, how things were with the contract, why he decided to sign with Washington, which didn't really, materialize, how his condition was uncovered. Goes into a lot of introspective detail about his mindset. It's an hour, 15 minutes. My wife and I watched it on Sunday night. She's always been a big Henrik Lundqvist fan. Always thought he was attractive. Sexy Hank, right? She thought it was great. Strongly encourage you to watch it if you haven't. Really, really good. And I think as Rangers fans, we get perspective on things because you see things that you remember and how you reacted and maybe some of the story behind it. But some of how everything kind of ended, I mean, you get a feel for it. I mean, it's something you don't know, but I think hearing it directly from him, I think may change some perspective from that standpoint. And wrapping up, oops, there we go. I want to thank you all. Special thanks to you all who follow BlueTruth. BlueTruth has broken 10,000 followers on the Facebook page. And I feel like every time that we do a show like this, I report that we're breaking higher and higher numbers. And I really, from the bottom of my heart, open heart, I can't thank you guys enough for that. You make this fun. This is nothing without your support and your interactions. Whether I agree with them or not, our hearts are all in the right place. We all want to win. We all want this team to win. We just may have different views on it. And I welcome discourse because for me, it does one of two things. Either A, it reinforces my initial opinion, my take, or it makes me see a different perspective that I did not think of. And in any way, that's growth. So this is about 3 years old now, this page. I've grown other podcasts relatively big on a network type scale. Never something that was teen specific like this. And really my true love is this. It's the Rangers. It's been that way all my life. So to be able to grow this into as big as it's gotten is awesome. And I do other podcasts where it's, 2, 3, 4 hosts. Like when you do something by yourself, it's a lot of talking to yourself. So when the comments come in, which I do my best to get to, that's what makes it fun. That's the validation. That's the interaction that I know you're enjoying what you're seeing from me. If you didn't, you wouldn't like all the news that we provide or laugh at the funny memes, which I think are funny. So I assume you think they're funny too. It's been a lot of fun, and never in my wildest dreams did I think that it would be well over 10,000 followers in 3 years. I mean, this is only episode 41. Like I don't do a show every week. I try to do about like once a month on average because there's just so much that goes on in hockey. And I don't like to just snap, judge, react to things sometimes in the middle. So, it's a formula that's worked. But you guys are wonderful. I mean, it means a lot to me that you're enjoying this, that you're interacting. And when I see a lot of the same names on the show, like as I'm looking through these comments, Chris Munch, I know you watch a lot, you interact a lot. Dimitri, I know you as well. Again, John Harris, I don't recall your name specifically, but I'm seeing you here. Thank you. That's what makes it fun. We all love this team. This is the tie that binds us all. And sometimes, having this outlet's been cathartic for me. The end of last season, the way that I was just able to kind of let my heart out after it got broken, I think it was like, therapy for all of us. But I think you guys felt it too. this fan base is just, I mean, Ranger fans are the best fans in sports. And am I biased? Yeah, I am. But we go through things. That's why I said, like, I'm kind of that amateur sports fan psychologist, you know? Um, but it is a lot of fun. And I want to thank you guys for the interaction, for all that you do, for, you know, the more you like, the more you share, the more it gets out there. And none of it happens without you. So thank you. Thank you for that. Carl, I think you've been with me from like day one, Carl, and I appreciate the hell out of that. It's like therapy for Rangers fans. Thanks for making this happen. And I kind of, I don't necessarily, that's not the pure intent, but it's kind of the intent, because I kind of just want to, let's commiserate together. If you're pissed off about something, I'm pissed off about something. If I'm happy about something, you're happy about something. Let's celebrate the wins, get mad about the losses, but we do it together. And that's the fun part, right? Andrew, well done, BlueTruth Rangers 7. Thank you. We do share in the same misery. I mean, listen, I'm not ashamed to admit this. I mean, it's how often I'm on my way to work or whatever, and I can envision them winning, and I can bring myself to tear up because it means everything. And I'm not going to get ahead of myself. I'm not saying they're going to win this year, but they sure have a shot to do it. So again, that is the common thread that brings us all together. Dimitri, Rangers playoff tickets are expensive. News at 11. I think what's happening this year is they're realizing how much more they go for in the secondary market, and they want to pocket it. I don't blame them for that. You root for one of the two most expensive teams in the league. It comes with the territory. I'll be at game 1 tomorrow. I have no choice. So I'm wired. It is what it is. Joel, great show. Thank you. Joan, I hadn't seen your name before. Thank you for watching. Hope if you've been on before, I apologize. Sometimes I see so many names. I try to remember them. It's not always easy. But thank you. So the series will start Wednesday night in New York. The Rangers have won the first 2 games of 4 consecutive series now. Sure, be great to get the first one. If you'll be in the building, I will be in section 115. Come say hello. I'll be the one in the Rangers jersey. That's my joke I always say, but you'll find me. I'm in the back row. Unfortunately, after a 10-2 regular season record with me in games this year, I show up for game 5, and that's the slop. If they're that bad again in game 1, I will take the hint, and I will not go to any more games this season for the sake of us all. Because, you know, that's right. That's right, PJ. You've been here, I think, since the beginning too. That's why I love we built this kind of community, and it's fun. It is. I mean, win, lose, or draw. I mean, I guess we have each other, right? So let's go Rangers. Let's keep this thing going. Like, follow, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Thank you for all the interaction tonight. As I always say, and I will always say, none of this works without you, because that's the truth. The blue truth, if you will. Haha. Let's go Rangers.